China. It's a country steeped in tradition and hurtling forward to the future. In this aerial journey, we'll see the sprawling nation from a new perspective. This is a place where pioneers brave the unknown, and monuments to the spirit still stand. Here, the landscapes are as diverse as the people, where cities feature magnificent skylines, and industries have transformed the country into a global leader. After centuries in seclusion, creativity thrives. In a generation, China has sprung from its ancient past, inspired by bold ideas, and risen to new heights. It's blended innovation with tradition, taking aim at the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead in the 21st century. This is China from above. Deep within China's western mountains are the headwaters of Asia's longest rivers, the Yellow and Yangtze. From there, they flow through China's vast interior, all the way to the eastern coast. These rivers are the lifeblood of central China, the nation's traditional and cultural heartland, where millions of citizens maintain a strong connection to their environment. In the past, the country's agricultural regions existed apart from the industrialized coast, but today, they're now more connected. Even the remote, independent region of Tibet now has a rapidly developing capital city. Lhasa, meaning place of the gods, has been the center of the Tibetan Buddhist world for over a millennium. Built on the city's Marporing Mountain is Potala Palace. Restored in 1645, it's 13 stories high with over 1,000 rooms. It is still an important Buddhist site with close to 1 million pilgrims visiting each year. Today, people from all over the region are preparing for one of their most important Buddhist festivals. In the village of Lamu, a few miles from Lhasa, Dava and his family are getting ready for tomorrow's events. It's the celebration commemorating Buddha's descent from heaven back to earth. The festival kicks off with Tibetans painting their homes with a unique whitewash.
Yeah, 我们当时这路过是，我们的呢，做的我们的路呀的，不然要出票，我们这呢，马，咱把这个路呀的，不然要出票呀去。
The paint turns white as it dries, signifying purity and kindness. At over 13,000 feet above sea level, it's also the most practical choice for resisting the harsh UV radiation. Painting homes and temples is intended to draw Buddha from heaven back to earth. The next morning, Dava's grandmother is up early. The villagers then go on a short pilgrimage. Incense was once burned to ward off bad luck after a hunt or a battle. It's now used as an offering to Buddha. Chanting and praying dominate the day.
가소라, 드리니 많이自己准备呢，俺们的门不准不打开没说了哇，俺这里呢门的。
The procession takes them over hills and around temples before ending at the local monastery.
春节新不哇，春节了呀，现在两个人能啊，瞧他们这的这个了呀，点叫春节他们这呢，瞧他们这东南亚毛呗，俺们那么些。 New infrastructure means that Lhasa is no longer the isolated city it once was. A $4.2 billion railway now connects Tibet to the rest of China, crossing 1,200 miles of high-altitude plateau, over a quarter of it built on permafrost. One city on the upper Yangtze River is growing at breakneck speed and is practically unknown to the Western world, Chongqing. Located in the central southwest, this city is the largest municipality in China. And it's still growing, adding 45 acres of living space each day to house over 34 million people. This ancient city has evolved over time by adapting to its challenging geographical setting. Its mountainous location requires an array of vertical transport options to move everyone around the city. Roads had to be elevated to alleviate traffic congestion at ground level. And it's not only roads that have gone skyward. Wang Nian has been a driver for the past 6 years on the world's largest monorail system.
都知道我们重庆是一座山城嘛，然后我们的地理的条件嘛，对我们单轨而言，在重庆的话是非常适用的。
Its 61-mile stretch of single rail weaves around the city, even threading through some buildings. Nian drives Route 2, known as the Scenic Line.
然后它给我们带来的不仅是交通的便利，也给外地游客可能觉得这是我们的一个特色。
Chongqing is a major manufacturing city and transport hub. Many global brands are moving here, where high-speed rail makes them just as efficient as their coastal counterparts. The city is now connected directly to Germany by China Railway Express. It's a 7,000-mile journey through 5 countries. But it's twice as fast as shipping by sea and a quarter the cost of air transport. Chongqing's port is still vital to the movement of goods within China. It's linked to the east coast by the Yangtze River, a route that passes through another rapidly developing river city, Wuhan. Here, one day a year, ship traffic is halted as the city celebrates its river heritage with a spectacular event. Wuhan is an important economic hub of China's interior. And its 10 million people are tied to the river that runs through it. It's been popular with swimmers since the Song Dynasty, 1,000 years ago. The annual Wuhan River Crossing Festival is a swimming event that draws in crowds from all over China and beyond. Former Chinese leader Chairman Mao swam here in 1966 at the age of 73. This unique festival is held in his honor. The highlight of the event is the team crossing, where groups of up to 100 people navigate the swift current. This year, there are over 5,000 entries and 51 teams. 61-year-old Ding Aizhen first took part in 1977 and has competed 7 times since then.
那么我在游泳协会是身为会长，今年是带了53人到武汉来参加横渡长江测试。
This year is significant, as it's the first time that she'll compete with her husband, Bo.
原来呀，我没有游泳之前呢，跟他在一起呢，各有各的爱好。就是我原来呢，喜欢打的牌，那是项目的时间。他呢，一直都喜欢运动。那个游泳呢，把我们糅合在一起了。我们几乎可以说，只要他游泳，我就在一起。
There are no winners in this event. The goal is for swimmers like Ding and Bo to complete the crossing together. But swimming on a river this powerful is not easy. It's a nearly 4-mile route, made harder and longer by the strong currents. Eventually, Ding and Bo finish together.
漂流我漂的其实有点紧张，那一天的水温可能还低一点，可能那个换气啊还不是蛮顺。
实际上是第8次横渡长江，我没有紧张的感觉，但是我有一种兴奋的感觉，跟我丈夫在一起横渡长江。
The annual Wuhan Sporting Challenge dates back over 80 years to 1934. In one Tibetan village, a far older sporting event is still central to community life. Archery. The event takes place in the valley of the Gongbu people, near the largest primitive forest in China. The Gongbu people differ from those living in other parts of the Tibetan region. They have their own dialect, traditions, and pastimes. As autumn sets in, the Gongbu community prepares to celebrate with a favorite sport. Jijia has been an archer for 36 years. Today, his village team is taking part in a local tournament.
俺大家的那老居住过的人，刚没俺真这里的俺好多没家俺我都没见了。
It's both a social occasion and a chance to show off some archery skills. The men come well prepared for the event. This ancient sport has been updated for modern times. The competition has its own unique Gongbu equipment, often referred to as the Screaming Arrow. The arrow is a wooden shaft with 4 small holes in it, which creates a whistling sound as it flies through the air. A traditional fabric bullseye hangs 100 feet away. Jijiao's village is performing well. Eventually, the competition comes down to the wire. In this centuries-old sport, many archers have faced tension-filled moments where everything is on the line. Jijia's final shot seals the deal. His team wins the competition.
앙당 뭔가 그래. 안 샘집도 안 거, 앙당 좀 그래 내나 안 샘집도 봐. 망아 삼도 고 차시. 어떤 것이나.
500 miles southeast, on China's southern border, lies the world's most famous peak, Everest, where a more extreme sport, mountaineering, attracts people from across the globe. The Himalayas is a system of over 110 mountains crossing 5 countries, including China. Climbers from all over the world attempt to summit its highest point at 29,000 feet. It's near the altitude of a cruising jetliner, where the oxygen is only a third of what we breathe at sea level. Historically, most climbers ascend via the south face route in Nepal. But lately, more are choosing to tackle the north face of Everest, as China opens up this Tibetan route. It's now possible to drive all the way to base camp. This year's main climbing season is drawing to a close. But a select group remains at Tibet's northern base camp. Pima Tinley is an Everest veteran. He's preparing for one of the most important climbs of the season, Operation Cleanup.
以往的话，我自己过来登山的时候，那我的目标纯粹是过来登山的。然后这一次带着一颗感恩的心吧，到珠穆朗玛峰，然后清洁一下珠穆朗玛峰。
But the job is too big to manage alone. The team needs some extra muscle power from local Sherpas and their most revered beast of burden, the yak. The yak's red blood cells have evolved to extract more oxygen from the depleted air. Together, the men and their animals will follow the route to advance base camp, collecting rubbish and equipment left behind. As the North Face gains popularity, more items are discarded along the way. Even discarded food can't break down in temperatures that reach as low as -31 Fahrenheit.
去得很早，但是今天天气也不好啊，在山里面下雪，暴风雪。但是我们一路上捡了很多垃圾，像这种啊，咱们国内可以买得到。像这种的话，它就是尼泊尔产的。这种本身降解的话特别困难。
This annual cleanup event is on a larger scale than ever before, with a team of 150 yaks, each carrying 100 pounds. Over several days, 5 tons of waste is collected, more than any other year.
但是效果是挺好的。通过这次活动，垃圾清理得很干净。
The cleanup is in keeping with the Tibetan philosophy of living in harmony with nature. At far lower altitudes, a Chinese team is exploring a very different world. An ancient city hidden underwater. China's Atlantis. In the eastern reaches of Zhejiang province is a lake containing over 1,000 islands. But this is a man-made wonder. The lake is only 60 years old and was created during construction of one of China's early hydropower plants. It represented a vital first step in the country's rapid economic development. These islands are actually the top of hills, a clue to what lies submerged below. Luo Shengliang was one of the first people to venture into this unique underwater world.
生活打小就是在水边上长大啊，打小就在千岛湖这个游泳啊、划船啊、捕鱼啊，那么应该说对这个水呢还是蛮有感情的啊，是另外一番世界啊。
Today, he has teamed up with cameraman Wu Lixin to use 3D scanning technology to resurrect an ancient city. Diving to the depths of this lake comes with challenges.
对你的心理素质是一个很大的考验啊，应该是说，在一片漆黑又冷又没有声音，然后。 还是这个千岛湖水底下就跟月球上一样，就是看不到什么生命的迹象，所以这还是蛮恐怖的，就是。
At last, after descending over 130 feet, they find what they've been searching for. The 1,000-year-old Xicheng, or Lion City. This will be the first time it's been captured three-dimensionally.
我们必须要围着这个，比如说拍摄体，要比如说我要全数据的话，我就必须围着它，从不同的角度多张拍摄，然后把这些拍摄的照片输入到这个程序当中。
Computer software converts these photos into a 3D image. Once an opulent city and the political and economic hub for eastern China, it now lays remarkably well preserved in the fresh water.
所以也希望通过我们的拍摄，通过我们的这个探摸研究，能够把更多的这个淹没在水下的这些历史遗迹以及 这些历史遗迹背后的那些故事挖掘出来。
China has a long history of harnessing its waterways. Further to the north, some unusual methods are used to monitor one of the planet's most volatile and dangerous rivers. The Yellow River is vital for life in the arid north. One of the cradles of China's earliest civilization. It now provides water to 155 million people. It irrigates over 50 million acres of farmland. But this is a river with a reputation and prone to devastating floods. New arrival Jin Jingpo is learning the ropes of this isolated Yellow River monitoring station. The hydrologist's role here is to provide daily updates to hydropower stations and dams further down the Yellow River, named for the enormous amounts of golden sediment carried in its flow. But collecting that information requires nerves of steel and a time-tested cable car. One of Jingpo's main tasks is to determine how much sand and silt is carried in the river.
测验方面，取出沙率啊，可能会取个10几次那种，一年都是很正常的，是一些水性暴汛，因为你测验任务多，可能暴汛次数就要多。
This method of data collection sometimes must take place at night or during severe weather, posing a steep learning curve for the new recruit. The research facilities and living quarters are perched on a cliff. Their cable car is the only link to the outside world. Something Jingpo is coming to terms with.
我刚来这儿报道的时候，看到这儿的环境也是挺吃惊的，毕竟也没有见到过这么像，就是条件非常艰苦吧，还要，但是慢慢的就是站上特别就是师傅也是特别关心，领导也关心我们，就是帮助啊什么的，然后就很快就适应了这个环境了。
This river makes life in northern China possible, allowing its people to grow crops in a place that receives little rain. On the fringes of the Gobi Desert, a green oasis stretches for miles. Perfect conditions for grape growing. China's Ningxia province is now the second largest wine-producing region in the world. 100,000 acres of vines are taking over the once dry landscape. Silver Heights Winery is one of the Chinese pioneers in a region now making a name for itself internationally. Harvesting is underway, a crucial time for Chinese winemaker Emma Gao.
然后到采收的时候呢，我们也是会用到60到70位机械工来采收，手工采收葡萄啊，然后以最快的速度呢，把这些好的葡萄用到我们车间里面，我们去加工做葡萄酒。
After studying winemaking in Bordeaux, France, she planted her first winery in Yinchuan City with the help of her family.
因为毕竟刚开始做这个事情，也不知道能不能成功，是否能够养活的，是否能糊口嘛。
Her belief in these desert soils was inspired by her father, who grew table grapes in this region.
那他就觉得说宁夏未来会酿出好酒，他就是想做中国最好的葡萄酒，宁夏好的葡萄酒，让世人知道我们家乡有这样一个潜力。
10 years later, Emma's winery has expanded from its city base and is now producing 63,000 bottles of wine a year. Winemaking is still an emerging industry, but farming arid land in China's north is nothing new. Reminders of the region's ancient civilization are evident by 110,000 Buddhist statues. Along both sides of China's Yi River are limestone caves called grottos, containing many thousands of statues carved over hundreds of years. These are some of China's earliest Buddhist temples, located just south of the ancient capital of Lyon. Within the 2,345 caves are almost 110,000 statues, ranging from under an inch to 56 feet in height. Hohuku is part of the restoration team.
可以说世界雕刻艺术史上的一个巅峰之作，因为龙门石窟呢，从开凿到现在已经经过了1500多年的历史，由于自然的风化和人为的破坏呢，可以说很多都是残手断臂的，所以说呢，这个保护对我们来说是现在面临一个非常大的一个挑战。
Huku's team is working on one of the many statues that have been damaged, and 21st century digital technology is being used to help. Using a digital scanner, they will create a 3-dimensional copy.
数字化的技术运用到文物保护工作中呢，为我们提供了很大的方便。我们现在的龙门石窟呢，正在进行3维数字化扫描工作，已经收集了大量的原始数据。我们将来可以利用这个数据呢，进行文物的修复。
This technique can pinpoint vulnerable areas in need of restoration, and it can even help to fill in missing pieces. Modern digital technology brings to life a unique piece of China's history for future generations to enjoy. Many of the statues would be destroyed, and a portion of the past would be lost. In China's subtropical south, there are remains being restored that predate China's ancient civilization. Yunnan province in China's southwest is home to more types of forests than any other, including one without any trees. Yuanmao Earth Forest is made up of spires of clay sculpted from sandstone over millions of years. Perhaps the most significant thing about the rocks here is what they contain. Clues about the prehistoric creatures that once lived here. And Yunnan province is loaded with dinosaur remains. It's one of China's and the world's hottest locations for Jurassic-era discoveries. Especially here in Lufeng County, the location of China's dinosaur geopark. Mr. Wang has been working with fossils for 30 years. He's been busy as discoveries are unearthed every few weeks.
这块化石呢，是一个登山爱好者，他们从这边登山爬山的时候发现。我们今天呢，主要是这个登山队员呢，给我们提供了这个信息，然后呢，我们到了这个地点，今天找到了这个化石。我们找到这个化石，像寻宝一样才把它找到。
This fossil belongs to the appropriately named Lufengosaurus, first found in the Lufeng region. There are now 76 complete specimens of this plant-eating species.
还有小腿，它的很长，大概在80公分左右。然后呢，它的体型应该是在10米左右。它生长在侏罗纪早期1.8亿年的年代。
Lufeng is also home to its own Jurassic Park, where discoveries are put on display for Chinese tourists. Built in 2008, this 110,000 square foot exhibition center restores the bones on site. It's now one of the largest displays of fossils in the world, with 70 sets of restored and mounted dinosaur skeletons.
就是我们在野外发掘一具恐龙化石回来的话，第一点呢，就是化石运到修理室里面呢，就要开始修复。修复呢，主要是要把那个化石表面这些岩石啊，要慢慢的给修干净。
Since 1938, researchers in the Lufeng region have unearthed more than 1,000 dinosaur fossils, with surely more to come. Yunnan's hills are dissected by the Yangtze River, the longest in Asia. It flows eastward through Chongqing and Wuhan, emptying into the East China Sea over 1,000 miles away. The mouth of the river is also the location of China's most populated city, Shanghai. Here, ships arrive from deep inland and from around the world. Navigating the harbor can sometimes be risky, but should an accident occur, a dedicated emergency rescue team is ready to spring into action. Shanghai is one of the world's busiest inland waterways and the largest port on the planet. Given the volume of maritime traffic, safety is a top priority. To help in emergencies, helicopter rescue teams are on call 24 hours a day. There are about 90 trained individuals in the unit. Among them are 22 pilots, including Wang Qiuwen, one of 2 females in this crucial role.
今年是我从事这个工作的第10年，然后我大概救助了100人左右。
Today is a training drill for this team of 4, who prepare to fly out to the mouth of the Yangtze.
你好，101，我们还有3分钟可以抵达你的上空。
Crew members devote many hours to these training exercises, so that if an emergency occurs, everyone is well prepared.
因为这个海上救助啊，它是一个，可以说是一个整体性的这样的一个工作。我们需要前后舱紧密的配合，才能安全有效地完成各种救助任务。 那么，为了保证这样的一个紧密配合，我们平时也是花了很多的大量的时间和精力来进行相应的科目的训练，从而保证我们在真正出动的时候可以做到井然有序地开展这个救助工作。
Training can't prepare rescuers for every possibility, and conditions here have a habit of being unpredictable.
基本上，我们现在遇到的这个救助啊，主要是渔民受伤或者是这个船舶的，或者大部分是渔船，因为它们比较小，容易受这个风浪的影响，渔船翻扣，那么人员失踪，这个是我们在我们所做的这个救助比例中，占的这个比例是最大的。
It will take 20 minutes to reach the safety boat with today's victim. Although he's made entirely out of plastic, the pressure is still on. The 2 crewmen in the back of the aircraft must perform as if they're rescuing a human being.
那么，空勤员中，其中1名是脚车手，就是负责操作这个脚车。 另外1名是救生员，他是具体负责下到船上或者是水中进行救援的这样一个角色。
Wang Qiuwen needs to keep the helicopter in a steady hover. The lifeguard is lowered almost 100 feet onto the rescue craft, where the victim lies.
一个当然就是我们通过这个训练可以加强我们飞行员然后空勤员的一个技能操作能力，另外一个也是增加这样一个飞行的经验。那么我觉得就像运动员一样，就是台上1分钟，台下10年功，我觉得是一个道理。
Each completed training exercise builds confidence and prepares crew members to respond to the unexpected quickly and efficiently. Back at the base, there's always plenty of work to do, while nearby, ships ply one of the world's busiest waterways. Container ships dominate the shipping lanes. And the largest of all are built right here. Covering an area of 54 million square feet is Waigaoqiao, one of the biggest shipbuilders in the world. This Chinese company, employing 8,000 workers, designs and builds a variety of ships. They're now fulfilling one of its largest orders to date, 11 of the biggest container ships in the world. Xu Jin is on a team of over 70 designers.
我感觉上，我所设计的区域应该是心脏吧，因为我设计的是动力，如果没有动力的话，这个船就不能走。
Hu Kanji is the hoisting manager, responsible for the positioning of huge pieces of steel weighing up to 860 tons.
下屋开始到目前为止，搭载到建造到这个程度的话，只用了，已经搭载了2/3的分段。那我们的目标计划呢，是在40天以内，把整条船的主甲板贯通。
To complete the 4-month building schedule, the ship is designed to be assembled like giant Lego blocks. 2 600-ton gantry cranes are used over 500 times to hoist these sections into place.
小马，后续这个分段吊装要注意一下啊，这个1号钩和2号钩的旋转吊牌要保持水平啊。
收到，胡工，收到，胡工，后面会注意。
然后，只要看到这个分段、总段能够很平稳、很安全的吊装到位的话，那我是感觉这个过程是非常享受的。
The first Finnish vessel is almost 1,300 feet long, 100 feet tall, and is capable of carrying 20,000 steel containers.
设计这条船从开始到有，感觉有点像是冲关游戏啊，就是从开始从无到有，一关一关打大 boss 结束，到最后交付这条船，就是我的大 boss 全部结束了。
It's time to move the ship out of the dock for testing. It takes 6 tugs 3 hours to travel half a mile into the main channel. Here, it will remain for 6 months, while engineers check all of its mechanical and electrical fittings, before it joins the rest of China's fleet of over 300 container ships. Together, they carry over 1.5 million containers on the world's oceans, fueling the fastest growing economy on Earth. China, a nation of enormous contrasts. A country overcoming geographic and climatic barriers. From its far-flung western mountainous borderlands to its urbanized coastline, home to its most populous cities. In between are the great rivers and heartlands of central China, a region of ancient traditions and explosive economic growth. Ultimately, China's great center is a place where urban and rural communities together face the challenges of a changing world in the 21st century.